Hello, everyone. This is Terry with Futures.io, and as always, I would like to thank you for joining us today. It is my pleasure to welcome back Brett Barrett from NinjaTrader for today's webinar, Automate Your Trading Strategies, No Coding Required. Throughout the webinar, if you have a question, please feel free to type into the questions box. We'll do our best to answer them at the end of the event. This webinar will be recorded and posted on the Futures.io website within 24 to 48 hours. If you're watching this on YouTube afterwards, please do us a favor and give us a thumbs up if you enjoy. And as always, please feel free to share, comment, subscribe to our channel. It really helps us a lot. We're trading news, events, and information. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter using @Futures.io. Also, please bear with us. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, most of us are working from home, so you may hear children or animals in the background. And now, without further delay, I'll hand it over to Brett, and you'll get the pop-up to share your screen. And actually, Brett, I'm going to make you a organizer so you can see the questions as they come in.
Oh, great.
There you go. She's all yours. Screen.
All right. All right, guys. So always pleasure to be back in the Futures.io webinar room. As Terry said, my name is Brett Barrett. I'm on the product management team here at NinjaTrader. Today, I'm going to be taking a quick glimpse at automating your trading strategies, no coding required. And we have a pretty unique set of features inside of NinjaTrader that allows us to build automated trading strategies, test out ideas. You don't necessarily need to be a coder to be able to do it. And I want to take a chance to kind of run through some of the things that you can do with that. At a minimum, it spurs some ideas. At a maximum, with everybody at home these days, we got more people getting interested and into trading than ever before. It's really quite amazing. And since we got a lot of new traders coming in, generally in the workflow of a trader's perspective, at least in my opinion, you usually come around and you kind of get an idea of some trading kind of signals that you kind of pick up on. You kind of figure out what works best for you and your trading approach. You kind of feeling out your own trading approach, and then you kind of want to validate that. You want it to say, okay, I've got this set of indicators I'm using. I've got this signal that I've just been discretionary trading by hand, and I'd like to truly know, is this really going to work for me by backtesting it and understanding, and then also potentially even automating that entry. So I view it, and you can use it in two ways: as an analysis tool, which is great to just be able to run back on historical data, and as potentially even an actual trading tool if you so desired, but it's not required. So it's two separate things. So that's going to be done in the strategy builder. And we'll show you the strategy analyzer and how to do those back tests. And I'm going to try to keep it as high level as possible, as simple as possible. I'm going to get into some optimization and how that works and what that is and why you'd want to use it. And then I'm going to get into our third-party vendors, how you load that stuff in. And then finally, if time, we'll go through the AI strategy generate, which is an experimental feature where we released now probably I want to say 6 months ago, and we've recently in the last release put some new features in place in that have made it a little bit more relevant. So before I get into that, I do have a couple of disclaimers I do need to get through, so bear with me as I read these and we'll get started right away. The risk and loss of trading can be substantial, regardless whether it is in securities, futures, contracts, or foreign exchange. You should therefore carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you in light of your circumstances and financial resources. You may sustain a total loss of your funds that you deposit with your broker to establish or maintain a position in the commodity futures or foreign exchange markets, and you may incur losses beyond these amounts. You can learn more about your risk by inquiring with your broker directly. This presentation is brought to you by NinjaTrader LLC, a software development company which owns and supports the NinjaTrader trading platform. NinjaTrader LLC is an affiliated company to NinjaTrader Brokerage. This presentation is for informational purposes only, as not solicitation or recommendation to buy or sell any security, future, or foreign exchange contract. Any exchange that are not related, or any questions that are not related to the NinjaTrader trading platform should be sent to your brokerage firm directly. All right, with the disclaimer out of the way, let's get into it. And let me pop in the attendees here. Looks like, okay, got it. We're going to make this webinar interactive. I will have a Q&A session at the end. We'll try to wrap up around about an hour from now. but I will stop from time to time to answer questions. So go ahead and throw those questions in as we go. I'm happy to pause and answer questions as we go. So you've downloaded NinjaTrader, you've been using NinjaTrader, or maybe you're new to not yet using NinjaTrader, but NinjaTrader is an execution platform, trading platform, of which you can build automated trading strategies in addition to trading discretionary just on your own. And we've got a pretty rich feature set and tools available to do that, including coding in C#, and also no coding required, which I'm going to focus on today with what's called the Strategy Builder. The Strategy Builder is available just by going into the NinjaTrader Control Center to the new menu and going to the Strategy Builder. The Strategy Builder is down here in the new menu, and it's a wizard-like approach, which I'll get into here in just a second, but I want to maybe just give everybody the context of what an automated trading strategy is, how NinjaTrader looks at it, and then we'll get into the wizard and how you set up a strategy. So I'm looking at a chart here on the ES 1 minute, and we've got some bars here, which I'll zoom in here to make it really large. And each one of these bars, NinjaTrader considers as an event. So every single time one of these new bars form, this is a 1 minute bar. So every 1 minute is a new event. We call it on bar close. And when the bar closes, we will trigger our logic. And logic simply being, we'll check a few things. You know, if the moon is full and the tides are high, do X, right? That's kind of how strategy logic is laid out, is that you put some conditions together, you test those conditions. So you say, you know, if the high of the current bar is greater than the high of the bar before it, then I want to do something. And those conditions can be any combination of inclusive or, you know, of various conditions that you can set up. Can be as complex as you want it, can involve indicators, can involve just the bars itself, volume, can involve time of day, day of week. There's all sorts of testing that you can do on a bar close event. You're not limited to just on bar close. You have other options as well, but just for simplicity in today's webinar, we're going to focus on the on bar close scenario. So we have a sample strategy already set up inside the project. It's called simple moving average sample. I'm going to skip over that and do something just a little bit differently, since that's perhaps maybe just a little bit too simple. I'm going to put together a strategy today in the Strategy Builder, and I'm going to walk you through how to do that. And it's just going to be a strategy which I'm going to start off with a simple condition, and then I'll add in another condition, and then we'll optimize it. So what we'll do is we'll start with if we have two higher highs, we will go long. And if we have two lower lows, we will go short. We'll start off with that condition, and then we'll start building on top of it and putting on some filters and things like this. And then I want to show you my general workflow about going through this. So, you know, I have not built the strategy beforehand. I'm just going to do it right now. So I'm going to show you how I kind of reason about it and go through it. I'm going to start getting into it, but if anybody has any questions on the general aspect of NinjaTrader and strategies and what we're doing at a high level, please throw those in the room so I can get to them before we get too far into the meat of it. So I'm going to go new and Strategy Builder. That's our entry point. Strategy Builder is a wizard type approach which will walk you through creating your strategy. If you ever get stuck on this thing, which will happen, I mean, this is one of the windows that you need to hit this question mark in the top right here to pull up our documentation, which will guide you through. I recommend anybody that's getting started with Strategy Builder at least take a glance through the documentation. It's greatly helpful. Now I'm going to go ahead and do a new strategy here. And I'm going to call the strategy Futures IO strategy. Hope it's a good one. And I'm going to click next. And you can see here, I'm going to go through these steps here on the left-hand side. So we get to choose how often do we want to calculate this. We're going to do on bar close. You can get more complicated with on each tick, for example, so on each trade or execution. And you could also do it on price change, which simply means if the price changed up or down, do something. We'll keep it on bar close for now. There are a bunch of more properties here. They're hidden on purpose because they're a bunch of stuff you don't need to get into unless you need to. I'll expand it here. But there's a bunch of properties on actually running the strategy. I'm just going to gloss over a lot of these. The default behavior is going to be largely fine for anybody here. On the additional data, so the next page here is additional data. This was something we added new in NinjaTrader 8. It gives you the ability to add in other time frames to it. So you can actually get pretty complex with the strategy builder. You know, the strategy builder is as easy or as complex as you want it to be, and it's kind of mirrors, you know, with as we're actually writing the code yourself. I mean, what you have to do here in the strategy builder as far as building conditions is no different than what you got to do if you were to actually program the strategy. The only thing you don't have to do is you don't have to know programming. Like, you don't have to actually type out all the things that these programmers and coders and scripters know to do. This just kind of does it for you. But you still have to think like a programmer. And it's definitely something that you pick up over time. It's not too bad, but you have to think about it in a way of, you know, okay, this event happened, I'm going to check these things, then I'm going to do something. You know, a computer always does what it's told. There's no ambiguity in a test. A computer will always do what it's told. And that's in a right thing and a wrong thing. Or that's a pro and a con, meaning, you know, if you were going to tell your kid to take their you know, sandwich that has half eaten to the trash because they're not going to eat it, they're done eating, right? You just tell them, take that to the trash can, right? And they know how to do that. Well, a computer doesn't do that. You have to actually break down each step. So you have to say, pick up plate, carry plate, distance X, drop open trash bin, drop plate in bin. You know, you really got to get that granular with it, and it's thinking in that way that we'll show you how that works here. But in additional data, it's simply, this unlocks the ability for allowing you to program with multiple time periods. So like if you wanted to run on a 1 minute, but you wanted to pull in data from a daily series, you know, so I only want to take long trades if we're opened higher than we were previously, then I'm long biased on the day. If that's the case, then I will only consider long trades, for example. So that's how you do that. I'll go ahead and skip next here just because it's, you know, something that is kind of a step 2 on learning strategy builder. Inputs and variables. Inputs and variables I'll get to as well. These are important because these are how we set up the ability to customize our strategy at runtime and also to optimize our strategy. Inputs are things that you can just put in some value. So, and I'll actually set up some right now just to give you an example. So like an input, for example, here might be, let's see, profit target distance, for example. And in programming, there's a type. It's called, there are various types here. Really all you need to know, you got to commit these a little bit to memory, but integer is just a number, you know, just a number, which is what we want here, and normally what you're going to use. Time is a time. String is like some character, like maybe you want to customize like a name, so, you know, ABC123 is a string. Double is a kind of decimal value, so 1.1, for example. And then bool is a true or false statement. So it's either true or it's false. And in this case, we just want a number, integer, and we'll say default profit target will be, I don't know, 10, for example, for now. And we'll click OK. And then we'll click add again, and we'll do stop loss, integer, default, 10. So what I've done here is just created a profit target and a stop loss variables of which I can customize later. And I'll show you why that's helpful in just a second. Now we get into the biggest step in the whole strategy builder. This is conditions and actions. Conditions and actions is where you're going to spend all your time. And this is where we set up the condition I just talked about. So in this case, I said I want to go long if I have 2 higher highs occur on a 1-minute chart. I'm just keeping it simple for now. That's a condition, okay? And it says if all of the following conditions are met, there's a box here, and then the next section says do the following with another box. So this is an if-then statement. So it means if this is true, then do this. And so how we configure that is we click this add button here since we want to set up a condition. So I'm going to go ahead and click add. And here we get the condition builder. Here, this requires a little bit, you're going to have to just experiment in here. It takes a little bit of time to kind of understand where everything maps to and what they mean. But once you kind of get it clear in your head, it becomes much easier to set up these conditions. What we have here is, so in my case, I wanted to check the highs of the bars, and I wanted to check, if I go back to my chart here, I wanted to check to see if I had 2 higher highs. And so how this works on NinjaTrader is a strategy starts on the first bar. So let's assume that this green bar on the left was bar number 1 in my chart. It starts on bar number 1 and it goes through every single bar, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It just keeps going bar after bar after bar through all the historical data until it gets up to the current bar. That's how a strategy works. And so it will run on every single bar and output some data associated. So when you're thinking about a condition, you're thinking that from the first bar on the chart, I want to check this thing, and I want to keep checking it for every single new bar. And then if I detect my condition, I'm going to do something, okay? All right, so in my case, if I think, if I look back at my chart here, I'm looking for 2 higher highs. So in this case, I would say 1, 2. So we got this bar here. So this bar, on bar close, on bar close, on bar close, on bar close. We get this one here. The condition looking back, and I'll show you here in just a second. Here, let's go ahead and configure it. Did I close out of my strategy builder? I didn't think I closed out of it. Must have. All right. Let's go back then. Did not mean to do that. We'll do it again. All right. So we'll go back through here to conditions and actions. We'll click add. And we'll go to, we want to look at price. So I'm going to open up the price folder, and there's a left side and there's our right side here with a box in the middle. The box in the middle is a set of conditions. So I can say, is the thing on the left equal to the thing on the right? That's how this works. It needs to be of the same type. So you'll see here in just a second. But in this case, if I go to price, that's the price of the bar. And I got lots of things I can pick here. So I can pick the high of the bar, the low, the median, the close. In this case, I'm doing highs. I said I wanted to see 2 higher highs, but as you can see, you can do whatever you like. As I do that, I now have a bars a go. Bars a go means what value am I looking at? Am I looking at the current value, which is 0? So the current bar that I'm currently processing? Or do I want to look 1 or 2 bars back? Okay. So in this case, I'm looking for 2 higher highs. Okay. So I'm going to check to see if the current bar is higher than the previous bar. And I'm also going to check if the bar before that is higher than the previous bar. Okay. And if so, then I've met my condition. So in this case, I want to set up the first condition. So I'm going to say if my current bar's high is greater than, I'm going to go back to the price column again. go back to high, bars ago, and now I can say 1. So now I've just set up a condition that says if my current high is greater than my high of the last bar, click OK, and you can see I've got that. High is 0. That's the coding version of what we just did in the UI, which you don't really need to really know about, but it's just kind of a preview. Our current bar high is greater than our previous bar high, then I can do something. But that's not all that I want to do. I want to actually chain 2 things together. I want to check 2 things at the same time. So I'm going to add another condition. I'm going to go back to that same thing, back to highs. This time I'm going to start at 1 bar, go. I'm going to do the same thing, greater, price, high, and now I'm going to go 2 bars ago. This gives me my 2 higher highs. Okay, so now I've got my condition built. Now there's this drop down here that says if all, if any. So I could set this up to where if any of one of these line items were true, I could do the following, but I want to treat this as a group. So I'm going to say if all, all right? So now if all these conditions are true, do the following. And I'm going to go ahead, and I just realized I haven't had the Q&A section up. So I'm going to pull that up. Let's see here. And then we just had one question here. Oops, I don't know why I can't resize this. Let's try that. There we go. Okay, cool. So we've got a couple of questions here. I'm going to see if a lot of these questions I'll get back to in just a second since they start getting into some more stuff. And Dr. Jamie, yeah, no problem. Glad to do it. Okay, so here's our condition. So we just set up the condition I went to do. And now I'm going to go ahead and go long. Okay, so do the following. Okay, and I'm going to hit add. And I've got various things I can do. I could draw something on the chart, which is good for a term called debugging when you're trying to figure out what your stuff's doing. You can also do a bunch of other stuff, like you can do an alert, you can do a log message, play a sound, send a mail. That one's an interesting one. You can share stuff. If you go to order management, which is what I'm talking about, we've got a various conditions or various things that we can do, such as enter a long position. And there's a bunch of sub conditions here, like you can specify what type of order you'd like to use, for example. If you just use the base one, that's just going to be a market order, which is the simplest. We've got enter short, exit long, and exit short as options here in the menu. So I'm going to do enter long here. And we've got quantity and signal name, where default quantity, that's just the default quantity of the strategy. We'll just leave that all with basics for now. And so we've basically now set up our condition, of which if we get 2 higher highs, we're going to go long. And we'll set up more conditions here, but let's just go ahead and go through this right away. And before I do that, I am going to make my inputs again since I closed the window. So I'm going to make my profit target 10 and stop loss again 10. Okay, and I want to show you where that comes in next. So now I've got my entry condition. I'm going to click next. We've set that up. We get the last page here, stops and targets. Okay. If you don't set up a stop and a target, you're just going to stay in a position until the end of the day. And you can customize that in the settings. In other settings, you can set it up to where it doesn't go flat at the end of the day. It just keeps it rolling. But in this case, just so that we can see a number of trades, I'm going to put a profit target and a stop loss on. So click the add here. We can put a profit target and a stop loss along with some other options, which I'll leave for now. The profit target, I could just come in here and select profit target and select a value, okay? And there's mode here. I'll usually work in ticks, for example. So I could say, I could just plug in here 10 ticks. I got a 10 tick profit target on the ES. But I set up an input in the page before for our profit target. So I could If I just put 10 here, I have to go back into the strategy and change the strategy every single time I want to change the profit target. Additionally, if I don't set a parameter and I want to go through an optimization step, which I'll show you in just a minute what that is, I'm not going to be able to optimize on that. So if I wanted to optimize, say, I don't know if 10 ticks is really the best profit target or stop loss. Maybe on the ES 20 ticks is for this particular condition. Well, the only way we know that is if we run our strategy, run it multiple times with run it at 10, run it at 11, run it at 12, run it at 13, run it every single time, see how our profit loss changes, and then depending on which one was the best, that then is the most optimal parameter for us. That's optimization. And if I want to do that, I need to set it as an input variable. So if I click this, and I kind of did that fast, if I hover over, I've got the set here, so I can set something dynamically. Click set. I've got various things I can do, lots of power here, but I'm just going to go to user input, and I've got my profit target value there. I'm going to select that. So now I've linked my input profit target to my profit target. I'm going to click add again, do the same thing for stop loss. Okay. Stop loss. Click OK. So now I've got a stop loss, I've got a profit target. I'm going to click next. It's going to say I've created my strategy. Great. I'm going to hit finish. And you're going to hear a ding indicating that we've compiled that strategy, built it, it's ready to go. So now what's your next step? Now your next step is to right click on either the chart. There's two ways that you can go about running strategies. I tend to use the chart primarily, but then when I'm going to, for a backtest, but if I'm going to do any analysis, any deeper analysis, that's when I get into the strategy analyzer, which if I click new strategy analyzer, this brings up the strategy analyzer interface, which I'll come back to in just a minute. Okay. So I just want to see what the strategy does. I just want to see what's going on with the strategy. So, which is always good in strategy development. You always kind of make one change, see how it's going, and then make another change. That's critical because you will get yourself in trouble. I've gotten myself in trouble way too many times by changing 3, 4, 5 things, and then you don't understand what you're seeing, and you're like, what change made it not work right? And you've done 3 things and you don't know which one it is, and now you're kind of spending the next 30 minutes undoing one thing at a time, trying to figure out what it was. Save yourself the pain, save yourself the trouble, add one condition at a time, go slow, and that way you can kind of make sure it's working as you expect it. So when you run a strategy, I'm going to right click on the chart, go strategies here. And I'm going to see my Futures IO webinar strategy in the list, along with some defaults. I'm going to go ahead and click that. Bunch of parameters here on the right side. Most importantly, you'll see our profit target parameter and our stop loss parameter. That's what we put in for our parameters at one of the pages of our builder. So we can now change this now later if we want to. For now, I'll just keep it 10 and 10. Most importantly, there's a bunch of other stuff here. I'll keep, well, maybe we'll have time to go into some of the more important properties on this page. But the biggest one here is if I just click OK on the chart, nothing's going to happen because I haven't enabled it yet. You'll see this D up in the top left-hand corner of my chart. That means disabled. So to enable it, you want to make sure that you check box this enabled property here, okay? So I'm going to hit that enable property, click OK. And now all of a sudden I'm going to see a bunch of trades on my chart. And so what it's doing, and we can go back, quick hot tip, you can go use control and the arrow buttons on your keyboard. So if you hold down control and hit left arrow, you can scroll back in the chart and go through each trade. This way you don't have to go through, you scroll through a bunch if your strategy doesn't trade that often, for example. That way you can just go through one trade at a time, which is definitely helpful. Whenever, at least in my workflow, I tend to kind of analyze each trade, make sure it's doing what I expected it to do. And if I come in here to the middle here, which let me just expand it here. I've got a couple of entries here I'll focus on here. So we've got this bar here, which if I go to drawing tools, we'll do the, what do we want to do here? The array. We'll say, so on this bar here, I want to D-line actually. Let's do chart marker actually. So on this guy right here, actually I should put it here, sorry. There was a buy here. It happened to hit a profit target on its buy, but what you'll see here is that on this bar here, this bar closed at this price here, and it went back and it checked its high, looked back here. Was this high greater than this high? Yes. Okay, that's condition 1 true. Then it said, is this high higher than this high? Yes, that condition is also true. Go long. It did that on the open. Okay. Now I have a 10 tick profit target, which in this bar, it happened to have a high of greater than 10 ticks. So I filled my profit target on just that one bar. And now it's open to do that again. And so it will keep going through that logic each time. And if I shrink this up here, you'll see I get tons and tons of trades here. So this strategy will just keep on trading. There's no like other conditions or anything going on. And so this strategy will overtrade. So now we want to add some more conditions onto it. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to Strategy Builder. Let's open up our Futures IO webinar strategy. And actually, let me pause here and go to the questions here before I get into adding another condition to it, just to show you how that works. So one question's asking, is there a way to optimize on the time of day? I'll show that right now. So we'll use that as our condition just by chance. So we'll do that. Strategy Builder, is it open to the free version of NT8? So we have a simulation version, which you can use all this in kind of a demo format without live trading. If you do want to do live trading and submit live orders, then you need to be having a lease or lifetime license of NinjaTrader 8 to use strategies in general. Got a question here. We want to compare bar 0 to bar 1 backwards and compare bar 1 refers to the bars back, correct? When I do the second, I get a duplicate instruction. Not sure on that question. This is from, it's hard to tell. Let me see if I can open this up. Loan Intelligence. Let's see. I'm just reading the question again. Compare to bar 0, then to bar 1 backwards. Then compare bar 1 to bar 2. The number refers to bars back, which is correct. When I do the second one, I get a duplicate instruction. Let's go to my condition here. So I've got 0, 1, and 1, 2 is what you're trying to do here. So I might need some more information on that one. Not sure. Can you negatively displace moving average? So displacement is not in the code. It's in the rendering in NinjaTrader, which means it's a visual only thing. You still can displace, but you have to kind of displace the way you're looking at the values versus I moved the values of the indicator forwards or backwards. So it can be done, but you just have to think about it in the reverse way. Thank you for explaining things, no problem. Your example is exactly what I'm talking about. Oh, okay, got it. Okay, you got it. Can you set up conditions on a 1 minute and a 30-minute condition at the same time? Yes, you can. And I'll show that as my last condition as well. I'll try to remember to do that. Mine says profit target distance, not profit target. Profit target distance. Add. Just says profit target on my screen, so I'm not sure where you're getting lost there. Hi, yes, yes, yes. Okay, defer the algebra, right? Written instruction to follow up while doing the strategies. So as far as written up instructions of the webinar, I mean, I'm just doing this for the first time myself, just picking a random condition, so that I don't have any write up for it. Strategy builder, is it available in NT7? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, taken care of. All right, good. Please discuss NT7 and 8 briefly. Seems like most people are still on NT7. Why is that? Actually, most people are on NinjaTrader 8. Great majority are on NT8. Do you only use the strategy builder, or do you also code in the script? So question from Myth is asking, do you only code in the strategy builder or also in the script? So with the strategy builder, it's the kind of non-code view. You can unlock the code or view the code. These are two buttons on my screen down here. So if you just want to take a look and see what the code looks like, I can click the view code button here. It'll open up the code editor here, and here's all the code that's being spit out by my condition set here. And you can see kind of the code version of it. You don't have to do anything in this code, but if you get into an area whereby you maybe are ready to try editing the code yourself, or you want to send this to some third-party NinjaScript ecosystem coder to kind of customize some behavior, you have the ability to unlock it. But then once you unlock the code, and now it's in its kind of code-only format, then you can't go back. So typically, you're going to stay only within the strategy builder, or you're going to stay only within the coding. But if you start in the strategy builder and you want to graduate to coding, you're not limited. You can do that. Okay. I got thank you. Can close of the bars be used for different types of bars such as Renko? So yes. So it just depends on what chart you put it on. So if I would have made this chart a Renko chart, then put my strategy, then that would have been the Renko bars that were referenced. So the answer is yes. All right, so that was all the questions so far. Great questions. All right, so we had a question in here. We wanted to add a multi-timeframe, what's called multi-timeframe condition. So check a 30-minute value in addition to my 1-minute value, which I'll show. And then also, let's see. We want to add another condition in here. And we had a question, how do you add time of day conditions? So let's do that. So let's say we only want this strategy to trade in the morning hours. Okay, we want to trade 1 hour a day. That's going to be a condition. So I'm going to go to my conditions and actions page, clicking next, next, next till I get right to here. And I'm going to add a condition to this to here. And this condition is going to say, I'm going to add another condition, add. And there's a time section in the tree here called time. And we've got some equivalent pairs here. You'll see date series, date value. Then we see time series, time value. And then we've got a day of week. Okay, so day of week is useful if I just want to trade on Mondays, for example, or whatever. What we're doing, time is going to be, let's say, the hours on the clock. So that's what time is. So, 3:08 p.m., for example. Date is going to be the actual calendar date. So we want to do time in our example is what the question was about. And so the time, how you do this is anytime you see the word series inside of NinjaTrader, a series means that there is a value associated per bar, okay? What that means is that for every single bar in the background chart of this, there's going to be a value. So there's a close series, there's a high series, there's a volume series. That's what builds the bar. Every single one of those is a series of values for every single bar. So if we want to access the series, which is what we want to do, that's time series. So I'm going to select that first. And I get a bars ago indicating to me I've selected the right thing since I'm in bars here. And if I want to check the current bar, and for now we'll say greater or equal, and then we'll select go to the right hand side, go to time value. Now this time I want to do value because I don't want to see I'm saying the bar, what's the bar time? And then I want to put in my own value here. And so in this case, I'm going to say, let's do, I am mountain time. So I'm going to do 8 a.m. Okay. And then my condition will be greater or equal 8 o'clock. So I want, if the time of the current bar is greater than 8, trade. Now this is only one half of the condition. I said I only wanted to trade 1 hour a day, which means that I need to put another condition in. So I need to go into add, do the same thing, time series. I'm going to select time value over here, and I'm going to go 9 now. And then this time, instead of a greater equal, I'm going to do a less equal. So now this is the other half of the equation. So anything that's only things that are true, anything that's less than 9 and greater than 8, will this condition be true? And these two work together. So we have one question in here. Does it matter what order the conditions are in? No, it does not matter at all. Okay, so now I've got my time filter on here. I've got my bars. We make one change at a time and test it. So now we click finish. We hear the ding suggesting that it's been done. Then we come onto our chart. Now there's a couple ways you can refresh it. You can remove the strategy and add it. I just come on the chart and I select reload NinjaScript. It says reload NinjaScript will restart your running strategies. Do you want to proceed? Yes. So now I'm only trading 1 hour of the day between 8 and 9 o'clock. All right. So you can kind of see how we just start iterating here, and we just start building on an idea to start filtering down trades. So the next thing I might do is I might say, okay, only take trades if the ADX indicator is greater than, let's say, 25, for example. So then I'll come in here, go back through the same thing, strategy builder, select my strategy, go to the conditions page, add another condition. Now I'm going to go to indicator. I can now select any indicator I'd like. ADX, I'm going to select that one. I've got a bunch of settings here. I can make a plot on the chart. I can select what period ADX I want. I'm just going to use the default 14. And then I can say over here, this is where the MISC category comes in. So select this. And we can then set a number. So if I come down here to numeric value, this is an important one to understand. These MISC is kind of a group all of a bunch of stuff, and the most important one being numeric value. So if I want to just check against a value, that's how I get to it. And now I can just put a value in. So now I can say, what did we say? 25. And I'm going to say not equals, I'm going to say greater equal. Okay. So now I've got ADX greater than 25 and my time positions and my high conditions. Go next, 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 finish. It's going to compile that strategy. I'm going to right click on the chart, reload it. Yes. And now you can see I filtered it down even more. Now only conditions within this ADX greater than 25 are trading. So now we've actually got it down to a pretty smaller amount of trades. And now here's where the difference becomes between the chart and the strategy analyzer. The chart and the strategy analyzer. So the chart is great for when you're trying to iterate quickly like this. So you're coming up with an idea, you're really looking in here, you're looking at the entries really close with fine-tooth pick, you're kind of building your conditions, investigating each one, making sure it's kind of working as you think it should. And now you kind of want to analyze this. Like, am I onto something here? Is this going to work? Okay. So on those questions, I think strategy analyzer. So now I go new strategy analyzer. Okay. Strategy Analyzer is very complex. Don't be intimidated by it. Really, you can start simple and just start to build. That's really the whole kind of aspect of NinjaTrader. You can start simple, but the power's there if and when you're ready to use it. In this case, we have our properties over here on the right-hand side and then our results on the left-hand side. So we've got the ability to set up a backtest, optimizations, walk-forward optimizations, multi-objective optimizations, and AI generate. I'm going to cover these two briefly. I'm going to do a backtest. I'm going to cover the optimization step here in just a second, and then I'm going to show you a quick AI generate and what that is, just as kind of a teaser. So backtest, I select my strategy. So I got my Futures IO webinar here. I've got my parameters that I exposed in my wizard, which are just set to 10 and 10 right now. I just need to select an instrument. So I'm going to select the ES. And I'm just going to run on a 1-minute chart, though you can customize that, rank go, whatever you like. And a start and an end date. And I'm just going to keep it at its defaults for now. And all this stuff here you can learn as you go, but just leaving it as defaults is just fine. And then I'm just going to go ahead and select run. And I'm going to get some results set here. And so where the chart is good for looking at individual trades, this is great for looking at the 1,000-foot view, the trees versus the forest view, okay? And so here I can see on this complete period back, I've just back tested this strategy we just built together. And in this case, we've got a total net profit negative 5,125. So we didn't do too good. Looks like we took total number of trades. We took 296 trades this year in 2020. 42.9% of those profitable. Our average trade win was negative $17.31. And we had max consecutive trading winnings of 8 trades, but countered with 12 losing trades in a row. No bueno. Okay, so we got something here. We don't have a holy grail, but we've got something. So now what we can do is there's other ways to view the data. So in the display, the best that I've got here that I like to look at is the analysis. So here, if we go to the analysis, the top half is a grid breakdown by day. So it shows every time how many trades taken per day. This is a number. So on the 1/2, we had 3 trades for a loss of $125. And you can see that as this little kind of drop down here. And the top and the bottom work together. So if I click down here, I want to look at this low here. I can see that this was 2/6/2020. That we had a cumulative net profit low of $900 on the day. You can see here, it looks like in March, we went positive for a little bit, positive 500, and then we went back down. So the graph makes it an easy way just to show how this works through time. And there are a ton of ways to slice and dice this in NinjaTrader. One way that I like to look at is the max drawdown and the cumulative max drawdown. So if I look here, this just shows you where your losers are. So a lot of times, at least how I look at it, is I actually focus on my losers, not my winners. So, one way of going about it is you come in here, you look at your biggest max drawdown days, you go look, okay, this was 319. You go over here, you kind of find 319 on your chart, okay? Which you can use the go-to feature if you'd like. So if you right-click on the scroll bar on the chart, click go-to. And I'm going to go to 3/19, March 19th. We'll just pick a date here. So we can go back here, 3/19, and you can see here was a bunch of trades, 8 o'clock as we expected. And we had a bunch of stop losses getting hit here. And we might want to add some other indicators to this chart or figure out some conditions to filter out this noise, okay? So in this case, maybe our stop loss and our profit target is just not wide enough. As you can see, I'm looking at it here. I'm mostly hitting my stop losses in the same bar, which means to me that I don't have a stop loss that's wide enough for trading these 1-minute bars. which makes sense because the market's been pretty crazy lately. Having a 10 tick stop loss on ES is pretty tight these days. That's one of the advantages of the new micros is that, you can trade the micros, have a smaller trade size, but a larger stop and target, giving yourself more room to work the trade. In this case, this is pretty tight in today's standards. So maybe we need to figure out a better profit target and a better stop loss, okay? So here's where we get into an optimization. So since I've exposed these, I could come in here and select optimization, okay? Optimization simply means I now, in my input parameters, it's all it does for me is just changes my input parameters to have a bunch of comma separated values here. And if I expand it, I can see what I'm doing here. So you can see the first value here is a min, the second value is a max, and the third value is an increment. So now if I want to say, focus on my stop loss here, and I can say if 10 is my minimum, I wonder, would a 15 tick stop loss be better? Would a 20 tick stop loss be better? What about a 30? I don't know. How do we find out? Well, we just got to run a backtest. 1, 2, 3, you just change the value, run the backtest. Was it better? Yes, no. Okay, it's better. Keep going. And we don't know which one truly was the best, most optimal value until we run all those tests. So now what I'll do is come in here, let's do max of 30. And I'll do that on both. I'll do a max of 30 as well on the profit target and a max of 30 on the stop loss. And the increment, finally, on each one, it just means on every single time the computer will do a run, it's going to take 10, it's going to increment it by 1. So it's going to take 10 plus 1 equals 11. The parameter is 11. Okay, let's test using a profit target of 11, and let's see how it does. And it's going to combine these together. So it's going to test every single combination and return to me back what the best is. And you might say, well, Brett, what's the best? The best is defined down here in the optimization section. We've got to keep best number of results. So it's only going to keep the 10 best strategies it finds, or parameter combination it finds. And it's going to say optimize on here. And we can say, we can pick various things here. We can say, try to give me the best profit factor, which just simply is a simple way of saying the strategy that makes the most money versus losing. But you can focus on anything else. So give me the ones with the lowest drawdown, or the lowest coefficient of determination, or the highest average profit, or the highest probability, so meaning more profitable than less trades. So there's various ways you can look at that. Max profit factor is the default and usually the standard. If you just want to keep it simple, just keep it at that. Keep it all at default. And then I'll run this. So here it says there's 441 combinations of computers running through. And when it does this, NinjaTrader 8 is going to use every single core on your machine. The optimizer in NinjaTrader 8 is completely worlds above anything I've ever seen. And it will distribute the workload evenly between all cores on your machine. Each one will get a set of results for itself to test, and then it will return back to the main and give back the best results, and then we just kind of group those all up and put them on the grid. So here you can see, even after optimizing and giving ourselves bigger profit targets and bigger stop losses, the best performance we could get was 0.86. It's not even above 1. It needs to be above 1 to be profitable. And a 0.86 means this strategy was the least sucky strategy. It's the lost the least money. So we actually could not get profitable with this strategy, unfortunately. So you can see here, this one only lost $3,125 over the course of 5 months or so, or 4 months. And I can just click these strategies to toggle between them and see how the conditions, and oh, and I forgot the most important part, the parameter column here which is these are the combinations of numbers that it tried. So it tried, this is with a 30 tick stop loss and a 10 tick profit target. The next best one was a 29 and a 10, and then wildly different, a 30 and a 25, 30 and 11. So you can kind of see how that works. And so now we know a 30 tick profit target and a 10 tick, and so a long target and a short stop tended to be, in this case, the best overall out of all the bad options. So that's how optimization works. Okay, so there's a lot to optimization, a lot to learn. You're just going to have to get into it. We're not going to go into a deep dive. I just really kind of want to open some eyes in this webinar, get some basics of what these things are, understand what you kind of have available to you, and now it becomes your turn to start to dig in. There's a lot you can do here, a lot to get into. We've got some pretty extensive resources. As with anything, you can always press F1 on any of our windows to get the help guide documentation. We've got an extensive video library as well on YouTube, and we've got an extensive webinar library, which will go into more detail on the stuff. Okay, and then I think there was one question I missed earlier, which is if I want to put in a multi-timeframe condition. I'm going to do that really quick, and then I'm going to get into a preview of AI Generate. So let's go ahead and close this down. Let's go back to our strategy builder. So we had one question in there. How do I check a 30-minute value or a different time period value? So let's say I want to run an SMA. Only if the SMA of the 30-minute bars if we're greater than the 200 SMA on the 30-minute bars, do I want to go long? So that might set my bias on the day. But I don't want that on. I don't want that 200 period to be on the 1-minute bars because that's too granular. I want it to be on the 30-minute bars. So let's go back into our strategy. Click next, 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 next. Back to my conditions. And by the way, we've just set up and I want to point this out too before I get into it. We've just set up the long side. So what you're going to want to do is set up the short side as well. That's what these tabs are for on the bottom. So we get a different set here where I can make a new condition. So now if I want to set up a short condition, so order management short position, I want to go short. Maybe I want it to be the opposite of this slightly in it, and I don't have to do this all again by hand. Some of it I will, but if I right click and I can select copy and I can select load, and I can load a template, so I can save a template or I can copy. So if I copy this, I can paste it over here, okay? So, or we can save the whole thing. So I can save a template, my condition set. And then I can load a template as well. So now I just loaded the whole template over. So now I want to change these to be the different conditions. So I'm going to make these lows now instead, and then I'm going to make it less than. Okay. So now I've just set up the short side of it just by doing that. So each one of these sets, you can have as many as you want. You can have these go short, long. You can have various different combinations. A lot you can do. Okay, but back to what I was trying to get to. We want to add a 30-minute. So now I click add, go indicator. We said we wanted SMA. Now, I guess there is a pre-step I have to do. I got ahead of myself. We're loading additional data here, which is one of my steps. So I need to go back. I need to select some new data to load on, since a strategy just has access to the data of the chart you put it on. So right now I've just got 1-minute bars I'm working with. I need to work with 30-minute bars. So I can actually select a completely different instrument if I wanted. So if I wanted to bring in, let's say, crude pricing into this and do some comparison there, for example, I could do that. For now, I'm going to say use the primary instrument, which locks me out of selecting another instrument. So it's going to say whatever instrument I'm on, I want that. Then I can select my time period and I can say 30-minute. Click OK. Now I've added my 30-minute series. Now I can go back to my conditions, click Add. Now I can go to my SMA indicator, okay, simple moving average. And there's a generic one, you're going to see this everywhere, which is input series. By default, it says default input, which just means whatever chart I'm on. So right now, this is running an SMA on the 1 minute. I can select this, go to data series, select another one, and this is my 30-minute chart here. And I can select the close, high, open, whatever that. And so now I've just set up a close on the 30-minute SMA. And period, here's my 200 moving average. And then I only want to consider my longs if I'm greater or equal to, and again, I set a numeric value, 200. Let's say I apologize, I did 200 period moving average, but I want to make sure the close of the current bar is above the 200 period moving average. So I'm going to go price, close, my current bar, my 1 minute bar, click OK. Now I've just set up that condition. So that's how you work with multi-timeframe. Multi-timeframe I consider to be a little bit more advanced. Don't let it intimidate you from getting in here and just starting to experiment with basic conditions. Just kind of keeping it, always start on one time period first. Start learning how this works in the strategy builder. Start learning how to think more logically. Then you can start graduating into the more advanced stuff. All right. Cool. All right, I'm going to go through some questions, and then I'm going to do a quick preview of AI Generate. Let's see. Great. Dang, I didn't know that. Okay. ADX rising. Okay, ADX rising case. In that case, you got to define what is rising, right? Rising means the current value is greater than the previous value. So you actually have to set up two conditions. So if you want to say, I only want to go long if the ADX is rising, not necessarily that it's above a certain value. So here, which case you would set up the same as I just did with the bars, whereby you take the current value of ADX, look at the previous value of ADX. Is the current value higher than the previous value? If yes, we're good, it's rising. Question, do you know what the differences are between NT and Shark indicator system? I don't know off the top of my head 100% how that stuff works. I know there's some fuzzy logic stuff involved there. Like you can set up, I get a few set of signals, and if some of them are true but not all of them, then go long kind of stuff. But I don't really know off the top of my head. Can you have time of day show up on the analyzer to change it in backtests? Sure. Let's see. Strategy analyzer. Let's see if we have that ability. If we do, it's going to be in the as I build my strategy. These are an input condition on my strategy. Let's add a new input condition, type, and time. So what you're going to want to do is, time of day start, 3:33. Starts with letters not allowed by letters or digits. It wants me to make it all one. So time of day start. Click OK. Add time of day end. Select time. So now we just exposed properties that now you can change the time start and end. So that way you can really play with it right on the chart. You don't have to go in each time, click next, 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 change it, next, compile, reload the strategy. You just can. Now I can just edit it right away on the chart and have it rerun. Just ease of use. So that answers the question, how can you get it to show up on the backtests? Is it possible to start strategies that use current ask and bid? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Not in backtesting though. At least in the strategy builder anyways. Since bid and ask pricing and stuff, there's some gotchas with bid and ask pricing. So if you want to start looking at bid and ask pricing, those are technically different data streams. So like when you're looking at a chart, these are just last trade events. We don't even know what the bid or ask is in the concept of a bar, right? So that's where you can actually bring in a different bar series. So if I was to say price based on last, which is our trades, you could bring in an ask and a bid series. Some providers only have this data in real time. Some providers have it in historical. A lot do. So you can bring it in historical, and that's good and fine, and then you can use it in that way. However, if you just want to use it in real time, there is a strategy builder thing where you can just get the bid, but again, it only works in real time. And strategy builder, again, go back into my conditions, add a condition. I think it's in MISC here. Let's take a look. Let's go price. And here we can do bid and ask right here. And that'll just get the current bid or ask price. Okay, question, is this being recorded? Yes, all the Futures IO webinars are generally recorded and available in the next day or so. Great presentation. This is incredible development. I'm abandoning my NT7. Thank you. Okay. All right. Yeah. We're really getting people migrated over NT8 at a pretty good rate. So if you haven't done it yet, now is a great time to do it. What is a good profit factor is a question. So anything that's above 1 technically is good, right? So if it's a 1.1 or a 2.1 or anything above 1 means you're in the money. Anything below 1, like a 0.9 or 0.8, that means you're not in the money. So you want anything that's above 1 for a good profit factor. And the reality is 1 is not necessarily that good of a profit factor. You want to look at multiple factors when building a strategy. So you could have a strategy that has a great profit factor. Let's say it's got a profit factor of 1, like it's it made money, right? But then it only made it back in the last few trades. It had 1 or 2 wonderful trades that made a lot of money, but 3/4 of the time it's in the red, and the outliers is what made it successful. That is not necessarily a good strategy. It depends on how you define it. Everybody can define it a little differently, but that's why we even have multi-objective optimizations and things like this, because what you'll end up doing is you'll end up doing multiple optimizations once you get into it. You'll do an optimization to find some conditions that give you a good profit factor. I get some variables or inputs, I write those down on a piece of paper, and then I go for max min drawdown. And I see which ones gave me the lowest drawdown. Okay, and then I look at those and I compare those values and I say, okay, a 30 and a 29 period gave me the best profit factor, and a 32 and a 17 gave me the least drawdown. Well, which one's better? And that's only up to the trader to decide. A long way to answer that question, but I thought it was an interesting question. Can Ninja 8 be used for the whole portfolio of instruments? The answer is we do have a basket backtest function, but it doesn't work in a portfolio function. So it kind of treats each thing as its own thing. Like I want to set up my strategy, and I want to run it on the NASDAQ 100, and I want to see what was the most profitable. And then maybe I focus on just 5 instruments out of the NASDAQ 100 because my strategy works the best on that. That's what we can do in a basket backtest. But as far as like, if I traded this thing here first and I only have this amount of money and I want to allocate properly, and I only want to, I don't want to take trades if I'm out of allocations, stuff like that, we don't support that type of portfolio trading at this time. If I want a strategy to go long or short, depending on the setup, would that be 2 strategies or 1? So just 1. You can do it either way. Just depends on how you're feeling. So if you can build 2 strategies, 1 for long bias, 1 for short bias. And depending on your kind of bias on the day, maybe only run one. If that's totally a viable way to run strategies, or you set them both up in the same strategy, of which case then the signals kind of compete with each other. The signal that comes first is what wins out. So if you get a long signal and you're currently in a long trade and a short signal comes along, that short signal will then compete with your long and it will actually make you short. So the short will override the long and then bring you back to short. So if the short wasn't there, the long still would have been in a long trade, for example. It just depends on what you're looking for. That may be exactly what you're looking for. You know, you may want to decide to switch to the other side if this condition comes true. Both are totally valid ways. Question, can the other instruments be tick or other types of internal indicators? The answer is yes. I showed that. Where are the constructed strategies stored, since I have more than one license? So the strategies are all stored in your My Doc. If you go to new, they're all in the My Documents folder, NinjaTrader 8, and then your custom folder. And then there's a strategies folder in there. They're all in there. You can do a backup as well if you're ever worried about that. Once you build something, you go tools, export backup file. You can also export strategy itself, NinjaScript add-on, but if you do a backup file, it wants me to disconnect before I do a backup, which makes sense. But if I do a backup, I can back it up that way. Either way works. Has strategy generator been fixed to work with Renko bars? No, we don't support exotic types. Just another question. Okay, what's the best way to dig into this great stuff? Are there any more webinars like today? Yeah, so we've got some webinars on our website. If I pop this up, platform, if you go to help, if you go to help video guides and webinars in the training section here, we do have some strategy builder stuff in there. So please feel free to take a look. Simple calculation would be the ratio of two different instruments, ES and NQ. So yeah, yes, you can do that. So the question is, can we make a ratio like two different instruments? Yes, you can do that, but I'm running out of time and I really want to show the AI generate really quick. So please email that in to me, either to platform support at ninjatrader.com. We'll show you the way to do that, or Brett.Barrett at ninjatrader.com. That's my personal email. Looks like we got about 3 more questions here. Can you backtest pairs trading, ARB strategies? Pair trading and ARB strategies, that kind of gets into the realm of spread trading a little bit. A lot of our stuff is not really set up in that way. Yes, you can do it through kind of workarounds and stuff, but I just don't advise it. So the answer is no. Great, thanks. Okay, for ES, what would be a realistic slippage to put in for the settings? So for slippage, I mean, there is no answer to that. Slippage is one of those interesting things. So I'll get into this spiel really quickly for those of you that are getting new into backtesting and strategies and things like this, which is everything that you see, every action that we're taking is based on the data in the bars in the chart, okay? And we have to use that data. We're not in there live. There is no way to be in there live like it was. If you're in there live and you make a market and you submit a limit order, you become a part of the market. If this price was up here at this high price here on this bar, or let's just say up here, and you submitted a limit order up here to fill, and somebody came up here and fill you, you would have made a new high, for example. And who knows if that would have been 1, 2, 3 ticks new high. You know, ES is pretty liquid, but point is, on any other instruments which aren't so liquid, you become kind of a part of the market and influence. And when anytime you're working with the market, you know, things just don't fill as fast, you know. So point is, any strategy backtesting based on bars are just kind of approximations. You know, you're getting a ballpark answer, okay? Now there's various ways to get a better than ballpark answer, and that's by using better fill approaches. So what we have is a feature, which if I go to strategies here, go to my strategy, turn it off so I can edit the properties. We even have something here called order fill resolution, which you can put it on high and bring in another series, like a one tick series, to fill data on. So we can actually look at the lowest granularity data to fill orders on. That's going to get you as close as you can, but it's still not real life. It is a backtest based on historical results. So as long as you keep that in mind, yes, you can add some slippage like 1, 2, and 3, for example, and just come to some approximation, but it's never going to be 100%. You're not going to find some number that's going to be 100%. Okay, IBFX, thanks as well. Have a good evening. Using strategies with market replay is better. It's not better. It's just that you force yourself to look at it tick by tick. You can't come in and do the same thing in a backtest. So as long as you built it in a tick by tick way. But this is for stuff that really gets to the more granular stuff. If you're starting to get into the higher speed stuff, so everything I've been talking about here with like a signal based on bar data, you know, I'm looking at 1 minute bars, I'm looking at 233 tick bars. And when the bar closes, do something, you know, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. When choosing an indicator to include in the strategy, can we use the indicator template to load its settings? No, you need to specify the settings in your strategy. What's the difference between execution method, standard, high, and backtest? Okay, I think we answered that. It's just, there is some more documentation on it, but when we fill an order, we have to look at the open, high, low, close price bar of the bar and try to, those are the values we have, we can assign to the fill of the order. If we wanted to try to fill this order in the bar, inside the bar, we can break it down using high order fill resolution and by looking at the underlying ticks that made up the bar, and then we can use that to fill it. And if you're using on bar close type logic, you don't have to worry about it. If you're building a strategy that runs on each tick in live, then it's helpful because a bar just isn't there. You know, it's, you know, when I click the go left and right, it's just not, you know, that bar just isn't there. That bar has to build over time. And you want to simulate that in your backtest, in which case use high order flow resolution. It takes more time to run the backtest, but gets a more accurate result whenever you're doing stuff on each tick or on price change. Okay, great questions, everybody. I mean, that was really kind of the Q&A session. So I would say the Q&A session's done. If you have any final questions, go ahead and put them in there. Otherwise, for those of you that have stuck around to the end, we'll do a quick AI generate preview. I'm going to explain a little bit about it. I actually did one. I did an AI generate. I took about 10 minutes before the webinar and did a AI generate. I was not successful in my AI generate run since I didn't get any good strategies, but it at least allows me to demonstrate what it is and explain it. So when I come into the strategy analyzer, one of the new features we added in experimental mode was AI generate. And the way that I think about it is it's a way to generate ideas, okay? So here's how it works. It's nothing too fancy, but what it does is we give it a list of indicators. So if we click indicators, we can select any amount of indicators in here. One of the things we recently added in the newest release is now you can select third-party indicators in this list. You couldn't do that previously. And you can give it throw a whole bunch of indicators at it. If you can narrow the scope, that's good. You can also do various candlestick patterns. You can also do various other entry conditions like day of week, session time. But what it's going to do is it's going to say it's got 103 indicators right now loaded, which is just all the system indicators. And what it's going to do, you'll see various properties here is generation, generation size, threshold, keep best results. So in this case, it's going to randomly pick the generation size is 20. So it's going to pick 20 of these 103 indicators. And it's going to randomly generate a condition. So just like we were doing it by hand. So we were saying if the one bar prior, if our current high is greater than the one bar prior high, go long. We kind of did that by hand, right? This does it for you. So this will randomly generate conditions, which one of those randomly conditions could exactly be that condition that we just said. But it could also be a million different other conditions and combinations, and even more than a million probably, of different things we could have tested. So we could have said, what if it was 5 bars in a row higher, then go long? Would that have been better than just a 2-bar high trade? What if we had 2 bars up plus, I don't know, a MACD condition? This will go through and randomly assemble a bunch of conditions, then test those conditions, see if they were good or bad. Then it will go to the next generation. So it will take what it knows of what it just did, keep the best. And this is what's called, the method it uses, it's called, what is it? Let me see, optimizations. Sorry, haven't I? Where is it? Genetic, there we go. Couldn't think of the word. Uses a genetic optimization approach to go through a number of generations and cycles to kind of hone in on a best solution. So if its generation size is 20 and generations is 20, we're going to take 20 of the best. We're going to test 20 things. 10 of those are, let's say, the best out of that. So let's say 10 of those are the best. It's going to take those 10 conditions and it's going to randomly mutate with another new condition to come up with a completely new condition. And then it will test that condition. And it will do that 20 times. So it will just keep randomly keeping the best of what it found, plus kind of randomly changing something else to see if it could find something better. And it's just going to keep doing that and doing that and doing that until it comes back with a result set. This is good for generating ideas. I would not reserve this for a first attempt. This is definitely a more advanced feature set. You're going to want probably a good half day to let this thing run. Seriously, that's like the minimum. This thing just takes your CPU and hits it up at 100 and just starts iterating brute force using that approach to narrow in on possible good indicator combinations. And it's not biased. So it doesn't have any human bias in it. The only bias it has is how it rates what's good and what's bad. And it does that based on a kind of proprietary strength algorithm we have going, which is not that fancy. It's just a combination of conditions that we kind of view as a good strategy, which are just kind of common sense stuff, which is a strategy that not only has a good profit, but has a low drawdown, that's got a decent number of trades. So it doesn't have just one trade that was a wonder trade. It shows some repeat probability of being able to have profitable trades, and assembles all that all together into a single ratio, which we call the strength, which I have here. And it throws them onto the grid. So I've got a result set here. I only ran this for 10 minutes. Like I said, this takes a good, you want to just let this thing run. It's like folding at home, but for your strategies or for strategy idea generation. The more horsepower you throw at it, the better. And in this case, the only difference here, I get this view button here. So I got a strategy that, in this case, I got a 1.03 performance metric, so barely good. In this case, it took 651 trades and a profit factor of 1.03, 35% profitable. Now, a lot of these up on the top, you can kind of skip these. I didn't run it for very long, so I don't have that good of a result set. The longer you run it, the better the results. But in this case, my first real result here, 651 trades. And if I click and view that code and scroll down, now this gets into code. This is not strategy builder, but you can kind of read it. And in this case, this is a short bias strategy that looks for crossing below of a number of bars, 3 bars, crossing below a specific value, in which case then it will go short. And you can just keep going through here. You'll see how each one's kind of a little different. So here's another one which says, give me the maximum price of the last close, and if so, go long. So this is only going long at highs, which, in the past, we've been having such long runs, so maybe, that one wasn't that profitable, but you can just kind of see how it's just randomly coming up with random conditions. So here's volume up down compared with the DMI indicator going long. So the point is, this will just come up with a whole bunch of generated conditions, spit out some results. You could take a look at those, look at what it did, look at the parameters, then make a determination if you want to use that to backtest a little bit more. You could take that as a starting point. So this is something we have in experimental mode. We're just kind of getting feedback on it. Again, it is a little bit more advanced. I don't expect anybody that's, let's say, getting into using the strategy builder necessarily to get into this, but it's here, and it's accessible, and you can use it. It's an experimental, and we love feedback on it. So so that's the AI generate feature, something we just recently added on top of all the kind of basic standard strategy stuff you can do, of which we just kind of hit the iceberg of what's possible. And hopefully you guys saw some value in the webinar today. If you guys have any questions, I guess I'll throw this up here. If you have any questions, please throw it in the room. I'll hang around just for another minute here and also go through anybody's questions they've typed in. Otherwise, I want to thank you guys for joining the webinar today. My email is brett.barrett@ninjatrader.com if you want to reach out to me directly. And if you don't have any questions, you guys have a good rest of the day. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Brett, for the webinar, for the information, and for spending some time with us this evening.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm not really seeing any questions in here. A lot of them are thank yous. Good for getting questions. Email address is on the screen, brett.barrett@ninjatrader.com. Any good pricing, lifetime ownership of NT8, please contact us at platformsales@ninjatrader.com.